Greetings, friends. Your cartoonist pal Stan here with another intermediary episode of 50 Years in the Dungeon. I'm taking a break between the end of the first season and of interviews and all of that, kind of focus material. But rather than just kind of go silent, I've decided to show up here on Wednesdays because those of you who are subscribers to our free newsletter, look at that. I'm plugging the newsletter first thing in the show, 50 years in the dungeon.substack.com. Those of you who are subscribers know that as I finish the drawings each week that I do as part of the show, should I explain the premise of the show? Now, if you're here, you know the premise of the show. As I finish them, I post them so subscribers get to see them before anyone else. And it's been a while. I mean, I've started catching up. At the end of last year, I kind of tailed off. I would finish the sketch during the show, and then just didn't have time to finish them up. So now I've started to. If you're a subscriber to the free newsletter at 50yearsinthedungeon.substack.com, I will send you the sketch as it is completed after the show, and I've posted all those. If you subscribe now, you can still go into the archives and see them. But now I want to finish them. Like, I'm very close to completing the drawings for every year of the history of D&D. I stayed right up to the end of last year. The first 42 or 43 of them, I got the end one week in, finished it the next week. Finished and done. Finished, done. Which is, of course, another little plug, what allowed me to create the 50 Years in the Dungeon calendar that I did last year. More on that in a second. Now I'm closing. I want to finish the whole thing. My plan, and I've said this on previous shows, my plan is when they're all done to start looking at the possibility of doing an art book, collecting them all, doing some writing about the process or what the interviews were like or what my memories of that particular product. I don't know exactly what it would be, but some written material to go along with it, and then crowdfunding a nice little art book. But in order to do that, I have to finish doing all of the pieces. And so I am down to the last. I'm going to grab my machine here so I can look at it. I'm down to the last four pieces that need to be done for completing the initial arc of one drawing for each year from the history of Dungeons and Dragons. Hello, Michael J. Pastor. Good evening to you. Let him catch up. Yeah, no one's. I mean, if you're just discovering the show now, well, first of all, welcome. I'm glad you are. But yeah, this is a bad time for me to try to explain what the regular show is like, because it's not going to be like that today. Maybe I should. Just real quick. The show, Michael, you hang in there, buddy. The show, I've been interviewing people, and if you go back to the archive here, you can watch all of them. I interview people who have worked on D&D over the years, talk to them about how they got into gaming and experiences working in the trenches. And while we talk, I'm drawing a cartoon homage to a classic piece of D&D art, one from each year of the history. So I've got an archive with 40 or 50 really fun interviews. I say that with all humbleness because what makes them fun is the people I'm talking to. Hello, Chris Andrew. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tell you one thing I'm a little worried about is I'm seeing some lag on my screen. And if the drawing connection is going to be wonky, this whole thing is not going to work today. Because, as I said a little earlier, today I'm going to catch up. I'm going to be working on finishing the drawing from the 2022 product, Mordenkainen's uh, multiversal monster guide or something like that. We'll see in a second. That's the plan. That's the plan. Last week we did this, and I just kind of hung out for a couple of hours while I did some drawing, and I took questions from anyone who was in the live chat, and just kind of had a good time. But in order to focus on what was going on in the live chat, um, I, and to well, in order to focus on what's going on in the live chat, and in order to do drawing, I had to activate a part of my brain. The drawing and the telling stories parts of my brain don't go. Apparently, the telling stories part of my brain is not working so well right now. Anyway, those are two things that don't work in unison. So, in order to tell stories, I would stop drawing and tell the stories, which was plenty fun. But it slowed down. Slowed down what I was doing, concentrating on what you guys were saying, responding to you. So, which was fine. In the end, I finished the piece. I finished the piece I was working on, and I'll show that to you in a second here. But thankfully, here we go. Thankfully, after that show, my good friend and former TSR and Wizards of the Coast editor and game designer, Dale Donovan, volunteered to come on and help me kind of be a chat wrangler and to do so. It'll be something like a light version of the show. Dale has requested to be a disembodied voice, like my friend Troy is on the Sumo show. Actually, that's Troy's thing. Every show he does, if he can manage it, he's just a disembodied voice. He doesn't come on camera. He likes to be the mysterious voice out of nowhere. So, having said all that, I'm going to now click a button here on my screen, and we're going to let Dale Donovan join the conversation. So, Dale, thank you very much for volunteering and coming along. I'm really glad to have you here today. And that didn't work. Why did that not work? See? Tech problems. Guest is in the green room. I'm looking at this. I'm not sure what happened. I love live radio. Yes, so for some reason, Dale has turned off. I was just chatting to him before the show. We spent about 15-20 minutes having a good old time. Right here in this very scene. But Dale seems to have turned off his mic. He, as the text says, is in the green room. Let's assign him to guest one. Does this work? Dale? Dale? Dale is not. I think that what I'm going to do is disconnect Dale. I'm telling you what I'm going to do here behind the scenes. I'm going to, well, you know what, before we do anything, I'll leave this here for a second and switch views over here. And you can see this is what you can see on my iPad Pro. I do all of my drawing on an iPad Pro with the app Procreate and an Apple Pencil. None of them are sponsors. There are no sponsors on the show, but people like to know, so I tell them. David Shepard says, today Stan interviews ninjas. Notoriously quiet. So I'm gonna bull through here for a second and see if nothing happens for a bit. I will. I don't know. I don't even know if Dale is listening because he's not responding. But I will. Oh, you know what? I didn't open up. about that. Oh, yes. Oh, I can see the typing. I can see Dale typing to me. For some reason, Dale, you are in the green room. See, look, tech, if I remember to use it right. I'm going to disconnect you, and why don't you log back in again, and we'll see if we can make this work like we did 15 minutes ago. Here we go. All right, so we'll try this again, see what happens. So these are the unfinished pieces. Down in the corner. Hello, Dale. You're in the green room. Oh, I see why that's not working. Aha. All right, hold on. What if I go here? Dale, can you say something?
Testing, testing, one,
All right,
two,
that
three.
works.
I am on the air according to what it says. I am
Yeah,
not
you know what?
bartcarroll.com though.
It didn't. I see what I did wrong. I see what I did wrong. I can. Let me see what I can do to fix. So I can come over here and switch that, and you will just have a blank space. We'll have an icon of no camera, and your voice, and that will work out fine. But I know for next time I need to build a different scene. I'm learning so much about this live stream and podcasting thing. Look at that. Dale's been hit by a hold person spell, says Chris Andrew.
Is
Anyway.
there a reason I'm happy to be here, Stan, happy to help. Hi to everybody in chat, which I currently this is a different Dale. I am not Dale Slade Henson. I am Dale Donovan. I worked with Slade at TSR during his employment there, and that was the first time in my professional life, educational life too, that there was another Dale in the building, because Dale's not a very popular name these days.
And Slade didn't use Dale.
No, he used Slade. So there was no confusion or anything. But yeah, he was like, "Hey, you're the first other Dale I've met," and he was, much cooler than I was. So
he was a different kind of cool than you were. I don't know that he was much cooler than you were. He was just a different kind of cool. You're pretty
well,
cool.
thank you, Stan. I appreciate that.
All right, so I was saying last week. So these are the unfinished pieces, and if I scroll down, you can see the finished pieces too. But last week I finished the drawing from Strixhaven. It turned out pretty good. I didn't actually finish it on air, despite having been on for 2+ hours. But I got it a good long way, and then I finished it offline. And I don't know. I think it turned out pretty good.
I love the owl person, Stan, especially.
Well, you know what? The nice thing about these is I can both be humble and say, well, the original painter created that, and then be proud and say, yeah, I think I interpreted him pretty well. So to go, yet unfinished from the first season, we have this, which I'll be working on tonight, and it's actually further along than this, but I wanted to show you what just a sketch looked like. From Mordenkaisen's Multiversal Monsters, or whatever the title that is. Then there was the Mostly Complete Dragon, something like that. I don't remember the names of these books. I didn't work on them.
Yeah, I don't remember. Most of them are too recent. I don't
Yeah.
remember them either. Not just by glancing at the covers.
Yeah. And then there was the new Monster Manual, the 2024 Monster Manual. And since it had rolled over to 2025 in the meanwhile, I did also, this is the Dungeon Master's Guide. I also did the Monster Manual. So those are the 4 pieces that I need to complete to finish Season 1. So today we are going to be working on, here it is, Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse. And that
And the
is. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, with the astral dreadnought there in the background.
Yeah, one of those creatures that so many of us know and remember well, but how many of us have actually ever encountered in a game?
I would not want to encounter an astral
Yeah.
dreadnought in a game.
That's a weird part of doing design for D&D, and in weird part of playing it. There's As someone who really dives into the lore, there's a lot of
Mhm.
stuff that you create that most people hope they never run into.
And very often it's the stuff you're really proud of,
Yeah.
because because it's like, oh, they're not going to want to meet this guy.
Right, right. The write up is really cool, and people love to talk about it, but no one uses
Yeah. Well,
it.
I think in the case of this creature, if I remember my lore correctly, it appeared in a Jeff Easley cover of the original first edition Manual of the Planes, written by Jeff
Yes,
Grubb.
yes, you are right.
But that book did not contain any stats for said creature.
I didn't know that.
I believe that's the story. And so eventually that got rectified, but I don't know exactly the story around it or anything. So,
And we've
uh,
got Mordenkainen's riding the Kieran, which
oh,
is
yes, he is. That's very good. And thank you, Mr. Shepard, David, for mentioning Jacandor. Jacandor is a project that was near and dear to my heart. I didn't create it. It was one of the many brilliant creations of Jeff Grubb. It was a 3-product uh, mini line uh, that we were working on right before the dark times at TSR struck. But we came out of the dark times, and though that little mini line of products was within like the first 6 months of the WotC generation of TSR, and
mm,
everybody who worked on it was very proud of it because it was kind of different at the time, but it kind of went unheralded, which I've always kind of felt bad about, because I think it deserved more attention. So thank you, David. It's
there
very
were
nice to
a
know that.
bunch of really cool products that got done in that. After third edition was decided upon, like the close down the shop AD&D second edition AD&D products, um, that don't get the never got the attention or love they probably deserved. And
Mhm.
Jacandor's a really awesome concept.
Yeah, Peter Atkinson was really fond of it. Had very nice things to say about it, and like I said, we in that first 6 months, as you said, once the new forward direction had been defined, there was there was the 6 months of stuff that had been completed that was never published, plus the stuff that was on the schedule already being worked on. So we pumped out like probably close to a year's worth of work for TSR in 6 months or so.
Well,
So
and
yeah,
I mean that's one of the nice things. They put a bunch out, but they let it spread because while we were working in those 6 months when nothing was getting published, we weren't working fast.
no, that's true.
So
They didn't just dump it all out on the
yeah,
market. I don't mean to say that. But there was a flush of product after a long period of no product. So not everything's going to float to the top of the pile. Not everything can attract everyone's attention.
there
And
was the Apocalypse Stone, was that?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, that was the capstone on AD&D second edition. Yep, that was okay. Wrap up your second edition campaign.
a product to end the world.
Yep.
And that was a time that there were a bunch of the Doom and Star. What was the computer game that was so wildly popular for 3 years? Um, that we did little box sets of starter set D&D starter
Oh,
sets and
Diablo.
Alternity. Oh, Diablo. Yes, Diablo. Excuse me. You're right. And Jakandor came out in that era too. So hold on, let me just kind of get up and then start drawing. And I'd like to talk more about Jakandor because I think, as you and David Shepard said, it's a product line, it's a product concept and line that deserves more attention. So I already started doing the inking on the After
Oh.
Death. Not only that, I finished the inking on Mordenkainen. So that's
Wow, you
done.
work fast, Stan.
Look at that. Boom. Just while you were talking. So I
Yeah.
did Mordenkainen. I'm almost done with the Astral Dreadnought, and then I need to do the colors. So that's what we're going to work on tonight.
Okay. And while
Um,
you get
Go ahead.
that all going, Stan, get your layers and so forth set up. I'll just address David Shepard's comment that Jeff Grubb said there was going to be a follow up, and it got canceled. I don't know about a follow up, but he wrote a Jakandor novel that did not get published.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was going
I
to be
was
a
kind,
trilogy.
yeah, I was kind of the one of the primary editors on the first two products of that mini line, and I got to contribute design on the third one. And so I was able to read Jeff's very good Jakandor novel, but it didn't get published because it wasn't very high on the list of priorities at that time. So that may have been what Jeff was referring to, although I can't say that for certain.
I know that when we talked here, that he did mention the novels, and he's brought that up a fair in a bunch of different forums. Um, but so here's the thing about Jakandor that uh, um, and there are two ways that Jakandor is, I think, really you I don't maybe unique, but certainly interesting and not often done. And one is that it was conceived as um, a campaign world where, depending on which side you were on, which side your PCs were on, the other side would be the bad side. But they weren't
Mm-hmm.
they weren't bad because you could also play them, and just as likely the side that is good for one people are they're at odds and they don't understand each other. And the
Yes,
whole
two.
campaign setting was set up with that dichotomy.
Yeah, it was two very different cultural constructions. One very physical, nature magic, very one with the earth kind of thing, and those were that culture referred to themselves as the Nor, the Knorr, and the other
They
culture
they
on
like soup.
this.
They like soup very much.
Yes, the other culture on this large island, which was it was one big continent-sized island that it would allow you to drop it into, just about any other campaign world where okay, there's some ocean here, boom, I'm going to put you Candor. But the other culture was very intellectual, and probably I always kind of looked at it as a civilization in decline. They were very magic oriented, and they used lots of necromancy to sustain their infrastructure and their civilization. Like all the manual labor, all the farm work was all done by zombies, and they used the bones of giant of wild animals and so forth to again perform a lot of the physical labor. They had these great bone airships, because that was one of the things that Jeff wanted to do, like all good game designers. I think
Right? We all
we
love
all love
airship.
we all love airships. We all love zeppelins and so forth. And so the Charonti, if I hadn't said that name yet, Charonti, a Society of Necromancers, had airships. I don't remember off the top of my head if the Nor had airships, but I do know that both cultures also had suitable to their own culture mechs.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Mr. Steve Winter. Hi, how are you? I'm glad you can hear my voice.
We had a little
So yeah,
problem with that earlier.
they both had mechs. So you could in one of the things I did with the third product was I called it kind of a board game, but it was just basically D&D movement mechanics with the stats for these mechs that these two the third product was these two cultures coming into contact. There's a bunch of adventures, but in the back of the book there was a scenario where the two cultures battle mechs could fight, and I was pretty happy with that, the way that came out, and the fact that it existed at all. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I mean to kind of play off that the idea of this line was that there was going to be one book showed you the whole world, or the whole world being just an island, as Dale mentioned earlier, but it showed you the campaign setting from one culture's perspective, and then the next book showed you the same island from the other perspective. So the maps were of the same place, but they contained different information. Sometimes different names for the same thing, and sometimes something was on one map and not on the other. Um, and then the third book was going to be, and in I think in the original concept, there wasn't as I think Jeff didn't get to finish the third book. Is that right? Is that why you were working on it, or?
No, I from what I recall, um, he the third product was going to be adventures. These two cultures coming together, which was also the topic of Jeff's novel. He had a character from one culture getting exposed and like enemy lines or something into the other culture, and over the course of the novel, the both cultures ended up getting explored through Jeff's narrative. And in the third book, if I remember correctly, there was like one starting adventure for each culture, and then like a first contact adventure, and then some more where it was like, okay, let's you and him fight, you know. But yeah, I thought it was a great concept. I was thrilled to be a part of it.
I'm looking and I'm seeing that Michael says I can't hear my voice. Am I coming through a little louder now? I don't know. All right. Well,
You might. I think you have a little bit of lag.
yes, there's certainly that going on. I'm sadly running into this problem. Some weeks, the I think that it's about my Comcast. I blame Comcast. Where when I start doing the drawing, everything gets wonky, including lag, and I don't know. All right. Uh, all right. Well, it looks like I solved the at least the voice sound problem for now. Um, all right. So yeah, so it was going to be there were going to be some novels, and the concept for the whole of Jacandor was that would be it, right after that third product. It's not like it got canceled uh, because like it might have been more. It was supposed to be three products and out, and I know whenever Jeff talks about it, that's one of the things that he really likes conceptually, and that we thought, oh well, we don't have to do something that runs forever. We can do something that has this planned life cycle, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I haven't checked recently, but I believe those products are available in PDF from Drive Through RPG or the DM's Guild.
Yeah, I bet they are, and I'm sure that if you go to eBay, there's there's a fair number of them out there because they got printed. They got printed in full number.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't sell very well.
No, but yeah, that's something that happens. You know, I like to watch. I'm a movie buff, and I like to watch. These YouTubes. 10 movies from the '80s or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the theme is that were underrated.
Or
Or
that
deserve
you've
more
never heard
attention.
of. Yeah, I've heard of that. I watched
Yes.
it twice in the theater.
Okay, David Shepard says 2 of the 3 Jakandar products are on the DM's Guild. Well, that's less than ideal, but
Well, if it's the two, if it's your third adventure one that's missing, I guess it's the ideal way to have only two of the three.
yeah, if yeah, because the you don't really, you can come up with your own adventures. If they have the 2 culture books, yeah, that would be the important thing.
I mean, I suppose if they only had one culture book, that just changes it. That makes that culture's view of the island just the flat out truth, and there is no other thing. You can make up the rest for NPCs.
Yes, exactly. Extrapolate the other culture from the views given in the one that is available. See now, when we're done here, I got to go look and see which ones are there. No, I don't, Mr. Andrew. I don't believe I know Chris Pearson. I think he came along after my time with the company.
Or you may have both done work on a product.
That's true.
There's a lot of time when in-house editors or designers work on a product with at the same time out-of-house people do. Particularly back in those eras, there was a lot of times you just didn't interact directly with the
Mm-hmm.
freelancers.
That's true. We had more contact with the freelancers even back in the pre-internet days with the magazines than we did on the game design and edit side, because of course magazines by their nature were interactive. So
Yeah, that doesn't come up. A lot of people forget how much work you did on the magazines before you came over to work in the um, in the I any way I phrase that makes it sound like I'm putting down the magazine until you came to work on the main lines, the main products.
yeah, I was luckily excuse me, lucky enough to be on the staff of the magazines with Roger Moore and Barbara Young, and later a young man named Wolfgang Bauer.
Oh, sounds like someone
For
who's too good.
yes, for 5.5 years, until I jumped over to the game side. I'd been doing more and more freelance design and editing for the game side, and well, once I realized you guys made the big money, I came over.
Comparatively speaking.
Okay. Chris Andrew, yes, that's probably what. Yeah, the Legend of the that sound. Yeah, that's some freelance work I did for Margaret Weiss's company, probably if I remember correctly. And David Shepard says Jakandar, Island of War. That would be the Nor culture book, the sort of barbarians.
Yeah.
And Jakandar, Land of Legend. That sounds like that was the adventure book. So it sounds like the Karanti. Um, it was Jakandar, Island of blank.
It was an island of mystery.
Island of Mystery, Island of Magic, Island of something. I probably have them on my shelf 10 feet away from me. I'll go look.
Yeah. We're getting older. These things are further and further away in time, and also on the shelf. It's harder and harder to get that 10 feet over to the shelf.
I had to bend over and I'm old.
Oh, that doesn't. That doesn't sound
Jakandor Island of War is the Nor
yeah.
product written by Kirk Botula. Jakandor Island of Destiny. See, I thought it was a D.
Destiny.
By Kirk, myself, and the late great Mr. Kim Mohan.
Oh, Kim Mohan.
And
Kim.
the legend, Land of Legend, I designed with help from our group leader, the group leader at the time who ushered these products through to completion in a very chaotic time for the company, Harold Johnson. So
those were some of the last things that Harold worked on before he left Washington.
You could be right.
All right. So here I've got Mordenkainen, and I've got the Astral Dreadnought. And if I put them on together, it just looks like a big jumbled mess because it's time to do some coloring.
Woohoo!
So, as I say, I've got them on separate layers. So I'm going to make a layer between them, and then I'm going to create groups. Create a group of Mordenkainen, and what will be, I'll start doing the coloring, the flat coloring on there. And then another
here's a
here, which will be the Astral Dreadnought.
I know I'm supposed to do at least some of the talking here, Stan, so you can concentrate on the art, but I'm going to ask you an art question right now.
Sure thing.
Now, I know with the homages here, your color palettes are largely chosen for you. But if for an original piece of art, how does an artist work out the color palettes? Is it just a conscious choice, or is there experimentation? Is there spur of the moment? What is it?
Yes. Depending on the piece, it could be any of those. Sometimes you start with a concept, like sometimes if it's a wintry scene, you'll probably have a lot of blues. And if it's a summery, outdoorsy thing, you'll probably have a lot of greens. So sometimes you'll just pick a palette based on the subject, or sometimes you'll do a drawing and just start playing around and particularly with digital coloring, just try it one way and try it another and see what you like, and then pick the one that works best.
Yeah, I apologize if I put you on the spot there.
No, not at all.
Art has been the aspect of things that has always most fascinated me, because writing, editing, I believe I have some kind of insight into how words work and how you should put them together.
Right.
But the visual arts, I am at a loss.
Well, I mean, like so many things, you spend your formative years as you're learning the skills, you're learning these the answers to the questions of what goes well together. So by the time you are at the point that you're doing work that is good, it's kind of ingrained, and then you're not thinking about it anymore. So it's
I suppose it's like someone asking, Jeff Grubb or Troy Denning or Bob Salvatore or something, where do you get your ideas? I can't just answer that question,
I mean, kind of. I mean, like I say, you hit the nail on the head, right? Those are the things you might go through, but it'll depend on the piece which one which you want to do in a given case.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like there's certainly been times like, I really I want to draw something pink. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are other bits of um, once you're working on a drawing, you have um, your initial thoughts are, well, that's the color it is, like in reality. But after you put the whole drawing together and you're trying to create a mood, then you need very often to give that up. Right? You wind up with the things like a lot of the movie posters or detective imagery, where there's a lot of things that are only colored in blues because it's more mysterious, and highlights are in very sharp oranges or reds because it's a strong contrast to it. Um, but when at least for me, when I'm first thinking about doing a drawing, I'm not thinking of it in those terms. I'm thinking of it in like someone's skin tone is whatever their flesh tone is. But now I've finished drawing a sketch. I'm like, all right, well, they're in the shadows, and I really want to highlight how dark it is, so I'm going to be coloring it a muted version. Like sometimes what you'll do is, um, if you're like me, so I'm going to take this layer that I've just put down, and I'm going to duplicate it. So now I've got two of them, and the one on top, I'm going to do a thing called alpha lock, which means now it will only fill in places I've already put, and I'm going to make that purple. Now we've got a purple Mordenkainen. Except if I drop the opacity, you can start to see through it. And now when we get down to around here, we wind up at what his skin might look like under a purple light. So if I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
color the entire thing in a purple light, I might color it normally and then drop a purple screen over the whole thing and drop the opacity down. That is the modern digital lazy way to do these things. It saves you from having to think about what it would have to be like, and just use it. This is another thing that um, all right. So I will unlock that, and I will clear that layer. Um, and put it back up to 100%. Another thing that a lot of artists do is for creating shadows. So we've got that shadow on the side of Mordenkainen's head. Uh, Rather than figure out what colors that is, just draw the shadow as a full-on pick what color based on the lighting of it is. In purple is actually something that you use a bunch, or dark blue, and draw it over. Now that looks stupid, right? Who wants a big honking purple patch over his head? But again, if I drop the opacity down, now that becomes a shadow
Mm-hmm.
that you can see through to the color underneath, and the two colors affect one
He no longer looks like he's at a rave.
another. Right. And you can do the same thing on the come back here. Come back here. If I go and I grab bright yellow, and we come down this side, and bright yellows, it's harder to do highlights like this because light colors disappear very quickly when you do this. But now if I drop the opacity here, you'll see that he's got a see it disappears really quickly, but he's got a highlight down there. Maybe we'd fill that with white instead of yellow. Or, you know what? No, even better. Let's go with a blue. A bright blue. Another thing that doesn't look right. But I drop the opacity. You can see he's got a blue light shining on him, which is causing a purple shadow on the far side of the head. See?
Thank you, Stan. That's fascinating.
And now I'll get rid of that layer entirely and just go back to normal pinky. Normal, boring pinky flesh.
I was talking with another former co-worker of ours, Stan Lester Smith,
Mm,
and we were taking turns telling stories about our early careers. And I told him the story about the first time I came in to interview for a job with Dragon Magazine. I didn't get it,
right.
but that wasn't the point of the story. The point was I got a tour of the building, and as a game geek, that was pretty gosh darn cool in
Yeah.
and of itself. Yeah, it was offices, it was cubicles, and stuff. But it was like, oh, this is John Pickens' office or cubicle. This is Jeff Grubb's cubicle. This is, oh my gosh, this is Zeb Cook's cubicle. Because I had always been a credit reader.
Right.
But the thing but the memory that seared itself into my brain that day was when Roger Moore, who I was interviewing with for the magazine, took me into the art room
Yeah.
with Clyde Caldwell, Jeff Easley, and a couple other people. And I just, we were only in there for about a minute or two, but Roger had to kind of drag me out of there because I was just taking, like, it probably wasn't very long, but it seemed like a long time, just standing over each artist's shoulder as he was working on, some painting at some degree of completion. And it's just like, oh, I could just stand here and watch these guys paint all day,
Yeah.
because like I said, I'm visual arts are a foreign language to me, but yeah, I'm always going to remember that moment of that day.
That was, one of the great things for all of us who were working there, right? To be able to go over every once in a while and see things in progress. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
was awesome.
Stan, I don't know if you'll remember this, but I believe we were still back at TSR, and it may have been a weekend day, and you and I were both in the office for different reasons, working on different projects. But one of the artists was in doing some very early work on, if I remember correctly, the Dragonlance novel, The Doom Brigade. It
Oh
had like
yeah,
a
oh
dwarf and a
oh yeah,
draconian
oh yeah. I remember
fighting.
that.
That was so cool because he used us as I don't figures,
Yeah,
figure model.
but there's a lot of people. They used photo reference for the positioning, and then
Yes,
would just change the character, the facial details, and sometimes not so much. That's why people like Michelle Vukovic and Miranda Horner are on so many covers because they didn't change the
yes,
face so much.
yeah. There was one of the Birthright products, Book of Priestcraft, I think it was,
Yeah,
has all the people in the periodicals department at that time on the cover of that. There's Michelle Vukovic, and there's Pierce Waters, and there's Larry Smith, the art director. Yeah, Michelle Vukovic ended up on a couple of covers. She ended up on that Birthright cover. She was on the cover of a Planescape module, Something Wild,
mm-hmm.
where she's it's like a shot up into the trees, and she's kind of perched on a tree like a semi-bestial Tarzan kind of person. And yeah, so anyway, I just was thinking, I'm just in the office, on a Saturday, trying to get some more work done. And oh, my buddy Stan's there. And we end up being photo references for 2 alien species on a fantasy novel because we were the only 2 in the office.
That's the only time. Like I was in a few different photo reference shoots, and almost invariably I would get turned into an orc or some kind of monstrous thing. That was the only time you were the draconian in that one, and I was the dwarf
Yes,
because
yes.
just because I was the short one. I was a short, stout one, and I tell you what, the dwarf looked a lot buffer than I do.
I
One of the
thought,
funny
they
things
really captured my essence in the Draconian's
in
face. So,
Draconian, that was you all the way.
yeah,
One of the funny things about that, uh, the the painting for the Doom Patrol novel,
Doom Brigade.
Doom Brigade. Sorry, yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
Doom Patrol is
I've got a Doom
something else.
Patrol. I got a Doom Patrol book right here on my book on my shelf. So
Oh, okay.
it seeped its way in the Doom Brigade. So uh, I'm trying to remember who did that painting. Oh, it's
I
Easley,
don't.
right? I think it's an Easley painting.
I
Um,
think so.
so he finished it and then turned it over, and they came back and said to him, like the painting was this drawing on a mountain side. I think there was even some snow, but it was certainly up on a mountainside. And uh, the book department came back and said, um, "There's no scene like that in the book. The book takes place in the swamp." And
Oh, there is
but
no.
the art, the art had been approved. The art description had been approved, and Jeff had painted what they'd asked him to. So for the book,
Mhm.
they digitally lifted the characters and dropped them in a background that Rob Rupel, I think, had painted for something else. Someone else had
That
painted this
sounds.
swampy background, and the
That
characters got
sounds right.
dropped into that.
Yeah, I vaguely recall that now.
And so, and no one knew. Although both artists got credit. If you look at the book, both artists got credit uh,
Hmm.
for the cover painting, which is a little weird. Um, but
And
the thing was, a few years later, when we were working on, that just is not the right green. It's a little too ball gown green.
yeah, I can see that.
There we go. That's better. Uh, when we were doing a product to so that people could for Dragonlance Fifth Age, so people could, if they needed to buy an extra Fate deck, um, which only came in the core box set um,
For Dragonlance Fifth
for
Age, right?
Dragonlance Fifth Age, and so we were doing it. We were creating a Fate deck product, and it kind of came onto the schedule last minute. It hadn't been planned for. It hadn't really been budgeted because it was all pickup stuff. It was reprinting the cards, and I think I and Ed Stark spent a few hours creating a little extra material thing for it. Um, but we got very close to the end, and someone said, "What are you going to use for a cover?" We didn't have a cover painting, and so we were trying to figure out. We said, "Well, we'll just reuse something. It doesn't really matter. This isn't a, a product that's supposed to sell a lot. You're supposed to be, if you're buying it, you already know what you're getting." And like there was some hemming and hawing. I don't know if we want to reuse a piece of art. And then one of us remembered the Doom Brigade painting, that the original one had never been used or shown anywhere. And so that's what we use, the same that original version of the painting that everyone thought was a brand new painting. But if you were a Dragonlance fan and you paid attention, you could look and say, "Hey, that's exactly the same dwarf and draconian as from the Doom Brigade cover."
Chris Andrew asked a question that I will slightly rephrase. He is
Sure.
asking, who's the most talented coworker you ever had? Who blew you away? And I will rephrase that slightly so we're not picking favorites and hurting feelings. Who had the most, who had the largest impact on you? And I'll give you a minute to think about that, Stan, because for me, the answer is easy. It's Mr. Roger E. Moore. He's the one who hired me for the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I Obviously, he's an incredibly intelligent, creative guy, writer, editor. I was, you know, I was fresh out of school. This was my first professional gig. He taught me how to be a professional,
Yeah. Roger's
you know,
awesome.
and
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I can say he taught me how to be a professional. He taught me how to be a magazine editor, and let me let me expand my boundaries when I wanted to, and supported me all the time. And he was the papa bear of the periodicals department. And the thing that stunned me the most working with him was how amazingly funny he was. Of course, he wrote those brilliantly funny editorials in Dragon Magazine, but writing funny and being funny, are very often two different skill sets. But he was amazing. He and is amazingly quick-witted,
Yeah.
very funny, uh, nicest guy in the world, best boss I ever had, and it was the best job I ever had. So, you know, Roger E. Moore.
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Roger is someone he among the first people I asked when I started doing the show to be on, and he has been out of the industry a very long time and has very much tried to not. He doesn't participate. He's a fan. He still
Hmm.
plays and he still participates as a fan online, but he doesn't. He doesn't uh, play on his the work he did. He just doesn't really want
Hmm.
to do that. I mean, whatever. I guess I'm guessing at his reasons. I just know that I talked to him and he was like, "No, uh, I'm out and I want to stay out." Hmm?
Hmm.
I
Yeah, and
try.
you have to, and you respect that decision.
Yeah, I
Although
try
I
to
think
respect that and still look for an opportunity to ask him again.
yes, exactly.
So if you're listening,
Uh,
Roger, just give me a hint, and you're in.
I believe he is still active to some degree with Greyhawk fandom because
Yeah.
he's always a big fan of that. And he has come to the last couple of Gary Cons, which was very nice. So actually see him and shake his hand and tell him thank you for my career once again.
And and just knowing Roger, how self-deprecating he would be about that. It's your career. Um. So I've taken the segue that you have provided me and squandered it because I find that very difficult to to answer. There are a lot of people who've been um, influential on me, but I mean, by the time I came to TSR, I may not have been in the industry full time, but I'd been working, writing, and doing uh, um, and illustrating for 10 years or more. Um, so there's not a person like that for me. Uh, Ed Stark was instrumental in getting me to work in the industry. He was we knew each other in Binghamton, New York. He was from a Pennsylvania town just on the Pennsylvania side of the New York Pennsylvania border, and he had gone um, to Penn State, but growing up he'd bought all of his game stuff at this store in the Binghamton area, and uh, during summers he'd come back and he would hang out there, and he got a job there after graduating, or while he was in getting his master's. He got his undergrad at Penn State, and he got his master's at the State University of New York at Binghamton. Um, and he was working at that game store, and we had already known each other and moved in the same circle. So when he eventually wound up getting a job at West End, he came in and told all of us, "Hey, there's freelance opportunities here if you want it." But and I'm happy to say, yeah, but you got to work, you got to do the work. And a lot of people in the group did one project, um, but some of us tried a little harder, and Ed kept pressing. Right? He kept coming back and saying, "Hey, there's this opportunity. Hey, there's that opportunity. Here's what you want to do." And so I would not have gotten into the industry if not for Ted. And we worked together at West End, and then we worked together at TSR and Wizards. And he's always, you know, the thing is, when I think about him as my friend, he's been a very good friend and a very great colleague. But I don't come at it from the same. It feels like I'm answering a different question than you are, with what you were saying about Roger.
Well, as you pointed out, you weren't a newbie in the industry like I was. This was my first job out of college, and I had only applied to places like TSR and a few other places around Wisconsin because that I thought might be fun to work at. Only because I was so frustrated with the monumental lack of interest the corporations of America had shown in hiring me.
Short-sighted,
Yeah.
those corporations.
Yeah. So at one point I got frustrated, and it was like, this was, before home computers or anything. So I, had my stack of resumes printed up on nice paper, and I had some of the same nice paper to write cover letters for, whatever place I was sending this resume to. And there was 1 week where, I wasn't getting it. I was doing this for months. I was living with my folks and working a job to earn a little money, and typing out cover letters and stuff in the evening from the Milwaukee and Chicago papers and so on and so on. And at one point I decided I'm going to take a few days, and I'm going to apply to places that I think would be fun to work. I'm never going to hear from any of them, but I'll feel better just having done it. One of the things I applied, I sent an application to Astronomy Magazine, which is published outside of Milwaukee, and I had always been interested in astronomy, and I had taken the astronomy courses in college, and I had been, my job in college was I went to work for the astronomy instructor for the remainder of my college career, helping him, running the planetarium in the basement, helping him when we would go out. I almost ended up in the planetarium business as a career, because I was up for a planetarium job when the second time I get interviewed with Roger and the magazine, I got hired. So otherwise I might have gone to work for a planetarium in what was described as a mall of museums in Oklahoma City.
A
Because that's
mall
where
of
this,
museums.
yes, it was like a campus, and it was all different museums or exhibits of, various science or art related topics. There was an art gallery there, and so on and so forth. And one of the places in there was a planetarium, and they were looking for someone who had planetarium experience and who could work with words. And I had a communications major and a creative writing minor, so had things worked out differently if Roger had not shown his infinite wisdom in hiring me when he did. I might have ended up in a completely different career. There's a question
the
for
the
you,
ultimate
Stan. What
world.
is it? What? Yeah. What is a career path that you, in different circumstances, might have ended up doing? If
Well,
it,
I came out of I'd been in Japan for 5 years. You know this very well. I worked in Japan for 5 years in English as a second language instructor, and I under certain different circumstances I could have stayed in Japan doing that. Um, in fact, I mean, I had to make a decision. I was at a inflection point when the opening of a job possibility at West End came up, and that's what got me to come back to the States. Um, so that's one. Then after working at West End for a while, they had hired Ed Stark and a bunch of other folks from, or TSR had hired a bunch of them away, and everyone at West End was sure because I was friends with Ed and Bill Olmstall and Miranda, all the people that I hired away, we were friends, so they were sure that I would be the next one to go, and so they just stopped doing anything they promised they would for me because they were sure I was leaving at any time. And I had interviewed, kind of like you, I had my first opportunity I didn't get at TSR. And, you know, that was it. They'd said no, and something might happen in the future, but things were just terrible at West End because uh, they weren't uh, they weren't fulfilling any of their promises to me, and it paid terrible. I was living in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, and everyone I knew had left. It wasn't great. So I was beginning to look at going back into teaching in the States when I got the call from TSR about a new position that had opened.
well, I'm glad it worked out the way it did, Stan.
Me
Although
too.
I do think if you had stayed in Japan, you not only would have made a successful teaching career, you could also have launched your sumo career.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the time there, I was uh, um, back when bulletin boards were the best online thing. I
Hmm.
was the in charge of the biggest English language sumo bulletin board, uh, and so I suppose I was beginning to make a name for myself in the in the English speaking sumo world. Hard to say. It's one of those weirdly small pools. It's still ridiculously difficult to break into.
Hmm.
Um,
Like
and
game design.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, but even back then, when the internet was such a small thing, right?
Sure.
No one really was paying attention. There were a couple of print magazines in English, but they were hobby enterprises, not professional enterprises. So
I want to say, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, say so. who knows? Given what went on, I could eventually have done that, but I wasn't well connected in the sumo world. I didn't live in Tokyo. I lived out uh, in one of the um, prefectures about 3 hours outside of Tokyo. So I had no connections. I just had a deep and abiding love for the sport, and I'd read a lot and was growing to be knowledgeable. And my writing, the fact that I was skilled at writing meant that when I posted things, I sounded more authoritative, and I communicated ideas better than just average fans
Mm-hmm.
writing about it.
All right. Well, I want to say hello to Danny, the glorious artist. He's joined us in the chat, watching you and listening to us. So, welcome, Danny. And Chris Andrew asked a question: if TSR had given each of us a blank check to work on any
Yeah,
project, brand new or existing, what would it have been? And once again, I will go first,
go
Stan.
ahead.
Don't squander your segue time this time. The project that I would have paid to have get published was this was getting this was still back in the TSR Lake Geneva days. The Marvel Superheroes role playing game was near and dear to my heart, and the hearts of several other people in the building. The current steward of the game at that time was Stephen Shen, game designer, editor, raconteur, and I was doing stuff for the magazine, and we were working together kind of behind the scenes on stuff. He would seek my advice, which I greatly appreciated. And the companies, Marvel and TSR, hadn't been able to work out new terms for the expired licensing agreement between the companies that allowed TSR to continue to produce that game. But both companies were making money, and it didn't seem that big a deal. So both parties had agreed, well, we'll just keep the terms of the old contract of the old license in place until we can nail down the terms of a new one.
Hmm.
So I want to say this is based on very vague recollections, of course. There was probably a couple of years there, at least, where we were doing Marvel stuff that was just, yeah, handshake agreement.
Hmm.
The old license is still in effect. We're just going to keep going. There came a time, though, when we found out that no new contract was going to be agreed to, and the line was going to end. Like I said, Stephen was running the game line at the time, along with doing all his work on Forgotten Realms and other things. And he got the idea of, well, we've been doing this product line for a very long time, and a couple of years earlier had done a new basic set of the game, but hadn't touched the old advanced box set rules for many years. So Stephen's idea was, well, if we're going to go out, or if this line's going to go out, let's go out with a bang and give all the fans a new, updated, modern version of the full Marvel Superheroes game experience in a new, I think it was going to be like a 256 page rule book. We were going to say, okay, here's a new version of the game.
Hmm.
Well, take it, go have fun with it. Unfortunately, we're done. But here, we're going to give you this new tool set, or at least an updated tool set, and boom, go off and do it. Stephen was writing the vast majority of it. I was going to write the appendices, and we were each going to edit the other person's design. So Stephen actually had started work on it, and I think he described the rules section as about a third written. I hadn't been contracted yet because I would have been a freelancer on this project.
Right.
But I had a lot of polyhedron articles and stuff that would have formed the basis of some of the things that I was going to be working on. And then something happened and that product got killed.
Hmm.
It's not going to stop working on it. It's over. It's done. The license is done. We're done. Nothing more is coming out. So if I could have gone back and waved that magic blank check, I would have convinced TSR and Marvel to let us finish and publish that project, and then be able to walk away from that line saying, that product being a nice capstone for that
Right.
line.
Right. That's nice. Monty Cook talks about one of the I think it was the last product he did as a freelancer for TSR before he got hired in house was a
Mm-hmm.
big X-Men book um, for the Marvel game that never got used, that fell in that same. Only it was done, and
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to have seen Jordan Stevens' version of that. We talking about games that would not be my answer to this question, but one of the things that we had been working on was a revision to the Saga system um, for a second edition, maybe a new Fate deck that wasn't DL centered. This is in TSR days before the buyout. Um, and Steve Miller and I had been talking about it, and I was very excited about the possibility of doing a revised Fate deck and maybe taking that game out uh, beyond um, beyond the Dragonlance Fifth Age game. Now, as it turns out, Mike Selinker and I, mostly Mike Selinker, got to make the second Marvel game and do an updated set of Saga system rules,
Mm-hmm.
which totally changed what I thought I would want to do for a second edition, and in fact also uh, rekindled my desire to do it. But
Mm.
none
Didn't
of them sold well enough to make that happen.
didn't Bill Olmsdahl have some input on the Marvel Saga game at some point, or am I misremembering?
No, Bill. I mean, the game itself was designed by Bill Connors and Skip Williams.
Okay.
The core book, the DL5A core book, and the core Saga system game rules were Bill and Skip. And in fact, the game was ready to go to press when I got hired. Um, but neither Bill or Skip wanted to stay on the Dragonlance team, so that's how the opportunity came up for me and Steve Miller to become the shepherds of Saga System, and really, to a in as much as the game is remembered at all, we're kind of remembered as that was their game, and I'm not opposed to taking credit for things I didn't do, but I like Bill and Skip a lot, so I try and
Yeah.
remember to tell people, yeah, well, they made the game up. I had a different version though. I had an improved version. We learned a lot.
Yes, I remember with the Marvel Saga that Mike and yourself graciously allowed me to kibitz and give the occasional bit of feedback and so forth, because I don't remember if it was you or him, invited me actually into some in-house playtesting when that was being put together,
Yeah,
and
he did a
I
lot. He
was
had a lot of got. I mean, I'm glad that he brought you in. He is always Mike's always been very open to collaboration and bringing people
Hmm.
into um, to give their to help make the games better.
Yes. You know,
Um,
what he had sought me out on, if I remember this correctly, and so I pursued this in the play test that we did, was the how is this game going to handle um, luck manipulation like domino or roulette in Marvel character sense versus like probability manipulation like Scarlet Witch or the X-Men villain Proteus,
right.
which is, you know, and so, we tried different things in the course of the play test, and I was just happy to be involved because hey, I got to play with in Marvel again, and the what you guys did in that short run was terrific. I thought it expanded the saga system in some very good ways. Obviously, it was superhero directions, not necessarily what you would have done for a second edition of a fantasy saga game. But I thought for a card-driven superhero game that Marvel
Yeah,
Saga system was terrific.
yeah. Again, I will give credit, not give. I will make sure I say that that is Mike. I mean, what I did was I understood the way the game had worked and the way it had been played in action. Mike came at it from a more pure game design perspective. So there were times when I had to say, "Well, that's a great idea, but there's a reason why you can't do that in this game." Or I would take some of the things that he had come up with and say, "Okay, well, here's how that should be implemented." Um, but it was his vision.
Hmm.
Um,
Michael in chat suggests your answer might be the Pokemon Junior role playing line.
well, uh, I don't know if we, I would love that to have gone better. But if you ask me if given the question of uh, if they just written me a blank check and I could do anything, um, I had pressed um, for TSR to get the Buffy the Vampire Slayer rights early on. Got shot down
Mm,
on that. I pushed for them to try and get the like Hanna Barbera superhero rights. I mean, if someone's going to write me a
yes.
blank check and tell me I can do anything, I think the Hanna Barbera uh, or Godzilla.
Mm.
those would be my white whale projects.
The Hanna Barbera stuff. You may know this because I know you've talked to Mr. James Lauder quite often. Um, he had it pretty much set up to create a Marvel file for those Hanna Barbera characters in the Marvel superhero game system, and he'd gotten the people at Hanna Barbera to agree to that, but due to, let's say, internal TSR politics, it wasn't allowed to happen.
Well, yeah, not the first time I'm going to say screw internal TSR politics for
Right.
ruining the fun.
Yes, he because of course he was also Lauder was also the one responsible for the two very popular uh, installments of the Marvel file that ran in two Halloween issues, with some of the old Marvel monsters, like Groot and Googam, son of Goom.
Groot before he became popular.
Yep, when he was planet-ravaging monster until he got to the planet that had termites. And then he was laid low by the humble termite.
Man, it's tough being a Marvel monster.
Oh, and of course we can't forget Fin Fang Foom either. Though he was already statted up. But yeah, some of these late 50s, very early 60s monsters before this whole superhero thing kind of took off for Marvel. He wrote those up for the Marvel game. And tying back to what we were talking about in the very beginning, it was so cool to see these things written up and, old Jack Kirby art,
Yeah.
Colored in by our friend and artist Steve Sullivan. But again, those were like the Astral Dreadnought. It's like, oh, these guys are so cool, but they're going to totally destroy the characters.
There's something. There's something very, intentionally Cthulhuid about that. Right? It's
yes,
the same
exactly.
kind of thing everyone loves about. We love Cthulhu, yeah, but if you play him right, you just lose. You just go crazy.
Yes.
You're a fan of Cthulhu based role playing. I don't know if whether you're a Lovecraftian fiction fan or but I know that you like playing Call of Cthulhu. We played in a group together for a while.
I was just going to bring that up because Chris Andrew asked the question if you and I had ever played in a D&D game together, any fun memories. And I was trying to think, I don't know if we played D&D, but I know we played in Cthulhu. It was probably John Ratliff, one of John Ratliff's games, or maybe Jeff Grubb. I'm not sure.
Well, Jeff Grubb was in the group. It was at John Ratliff's house.
Yeah. Was this Beyond the Mountains of Madness?
Yes. And then you and the British, what was the something Valley?
The Severn Valley.
Severn Valley stuff. You ran a bunch of that for us.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, I'm a Lovecraftian fiction fan. I have at least one of the Arkham House hardcover collections on the shelf behind me, along with some other Lovecraftian fiction from anthologies and stuff from other people, and an entire shelf of Call of Cthulhu stuff.
Nice.
As a matter of fact, it's moved beyond that one shelf. So,
well, like Cthulhu does, he tends to creep around.
Yes, it expands. Yes, all the wonderful products that Chaosium has cranked out for that in the last 5 years or so has been very impressive. And I had to pick them all up. The Pulp Cthulhu, of course, which at one point, many, many years ago, I was supposed to write, but that didn't happen. So, and it only took 12
a lot of people who were supposed to write that at one point.
Yeah, or people who. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because Wolf wrote an adventure for it, and it only took 15 years, something like that, before it actually did come out. When it did come out, I made the joke online, telling this little story that if they had contracted me to do it, I could have gotten it out in 10, 12 years tops. Yeah. Not 15. But I'm very glad that's out there. I know something else I think we did together. I was thinking we almost certainly played some lunchtime games together.
Certainly.
Quite possibly Pursue the Pennant or Dynasty League Baseball.
Yeah, I think that we did some Pursue the Pennant for a while. This was in the right before the fall leading up to the last the big Christmas layoff.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes, and for people who don't know, this Pursue the Pennant and then subsequently Dynasty League Baseball were two versions of essentially the same game. It was a baseball simulator board game, which I had discovered maybe 10 years earlier at a Gen Con in Milwaukee because it was a Wisconsin based company. And I was just a gamer. Uh, and I was going to Gen Con because it was in Milwaukee and I was in Kenosha. And just wandering the exhibit hall one day and, walked past it, got a bit of this spiel from the guy behind the counter at his booth, walked on and went back before we left that day. And I was like, yeah, I have to buy this game. And not to pat myself on the back or anything, but I later introduced it to TSR, and it became quite the lunchtime phenomenon. I'm proud to say.
Go ahead, pat yourself on the back.
You can play, and I didn't design the game, and it still exists. It's produced by a company called Design Depot. There's a computer version. So if you search, I think, Design Depot or designdepot.com, you can get the computer version. And the thing is, they hash out real life statistics for the real life players. And so you can, for example, you could replay the 2024 season and see if the same teams, excuse me, let me take a drink. The same teams go to the playoffs, win the World Series, etc. But they also have done historical teams. So like you could put the 1928 Yankees against the 2001 Yankees and see who would win, that World Series. So if you're a big baseball geek, I suggest checking that out.
It is, so was it Stratomatic the really big one in that?
Yeah, the Avalon Hill one from the 70s. Yeah, I think that was the Avalon Hill one. There was another company, probably something from SPI, but I believe Stratomatic baseball, football, basketball, those were Avalon Hill versions, yes.
Yeah, so I liked that game. The problem with it as a game for me was it took close to as long as a regular baseball game to play a game, and it's not as much as I am a baseball fan and I like the whole concept of everything it represents. That's too long. I'll watch a game that takes that long. I won't play a die rolling game that takes that long to finish a baseball game.
I seem to remember we got it to the point where if both people knew the game, we could crank one out in a lunch up in the games library.
Sometimes.
Okay.
My
I do know at one
recollection
point
was
we had set up
that as often as not, it was two lunches.
That's not my recollection, but my recollections are likely very biased in favor of that wonderful simulation that you don't appreciate enough.
Well, and mine probably have something to do with the fact that we didn't, we only had an hour, and we didn't have the whole hour. So maybe I'm overstating that. Maybe it really was only about an hour to play the game, but it took us two lunches to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're probably right. If I try to think unbiased, we could usually do a game in 60 to 90 minutes. But yeah. That could easily become two lunches if if we walked down the hill to Pick and Save or Hardee's to get lunch first, and then came back, and then came up to the games library, and then got the game set up, and yeah, sure. But now you can do it. You can do it on the computer, and it probably takes about 30 seconds.
Game over. Game over.
Well, that's why you can do full seasons and stuff. If you're seriously
Yeah.
addicted to that sort of thing.
My nephew's kind of segueing here completely away from TSR. My nephews are huge hockey fans, and they love the NHL uh, uh, cartridge game, and
Mm-hmm.
they play whole seasons repeatedly. I mean, they will play the whole season and then do another whole season. Just season takes less than a month for them to do because they will just keep playing, which is kind of fun and a little crazy.
I remember. I we should probably shouldn't be talking about baseball games during this
Why not?
TSR reminiscence thing, but I'll try to make this brief. I'm talking to Bill Connors, who was a huge baseball fan, and he later confided in me that when I first brought that game in to play at lunchtime, I think I probably one of the first games I played was probably against Tim Brown,
Yeah.
one of our co-workers, and Tim liked it, and then it got really popular around the office, and eventually Bill Connors, co-designer of the Dragonlance Fifth Age Saga system. See how
Yeah.
I worked that in there?
Yeah. Good. Well done. Good time.
He eventually got into the game, but after he got into the game, he confided in me that when he was sitting there in the games library watching Tim and I play this game about playing a game.
Yeah.
Not playing the actual game, baseball, but playing a board game about a real game was just like this ultimate level of nerdery and geekery that he was just offended on some deep and abiding level. And of course, I'm putting words in his mouth now because he told me this 30 years ago. But he didn't think that
It's all
that
right. Sounds
was
like him.
he didn't think that that was a worthwhile endeavor. Let's put it that way. But eventually, I wore him down, and he converted, and he and I had some great times playing.
Bill, also a
The
huge baseball fan.
Yes, huge baseball fan. Yes.
Bill is going to be one of my first guests back when I start doing new interviews. I've been chatting with him about that.
That's wonderful. I have seen him at the last couple Gary Con TSR reunions, but we don't live that far away from each other. But we both have responsibilities and stuff. And he was one of the first friends I made at TSR. Him and Tim Brown actually, because they both started 2 weeks after I did. They were both in the games department. I was on the magazines, but for a while there, we were the three new kids. So we kind of, started hanging out together. And they both became very good friends to this day. So I'm thrilled to hear that he's going to be on your show soon.
He's another person that when I first came to him, he's like, "Well, who would care what I have to say? I haven't been doing this in forever." I'm like, "Bill, just come in and tell some stories. I guarantee you, people want to hear them."
And Bill is a wonderful speaker too. So
Yeah. So, Chris Andrew asks Dale, "What do you think? Who's going to win the 28 Yankees and the 86 Mets?"
I've been contemplating my answer to that question, Chris. I'm sorry I didn't address it yet, but I think the only answer I can give, and it's going to be a cop out, is the games are so completely different.
Yeah.
Well, are we going to play in are we going to play in the Polo Grounds, or are we going to play in Yankee? The previous, the 1986 version of Yankee Stadium or Shea Stadium, or and
Yeah. I mean, certainly, if I were to set the rules here, I'd say, well, they'd each get their actual home field. So we play in 1928 Yankee Stadium and 1986 Shea. But you're right. That's one of those big differences. None of the '86 Mets ever pitched in that Yankee Stadium, and none of the '28 Yankees ever had to uh, play or pitch in Shea.
Yeah,
So
the Babe Ruth and the other sluggers from the 28 Murderers Row never had to face a split finger fastball or a reliever throwing 100 miles an hour.
yeah, it's really hard to. It's one of those things that baseball fans immediately grok why that's such a hard comparison to make, but it's not obvious. You have to understand a fair amount about the game before you
Mhm.
can see what the variations that make it so hard to give an answer. Having said that, however, as a Mets fan, I would say the Yankees would win, and I hate the Yankees. But I think the
Yeah,
28 Yankees would have beaten the 86 Mets.
yeah. If forced to give an answer, yes, I would agree. I too hate the Yankees, uh, but uh, yeah, I'd have to say yeah that in an extended series, those Yankees are going to beat the Mets. I'd have to go back and look and see, exactly, who did the Mets have? They had Darryl Strawberry and Keith Hernandez and Dwight Gooden.
Yeah,
Dwight, if the Mets could have pitched Dwight Gooden every day,
that's
that might have had an effect, but obviously, you can't do that.
they couldn't do that in
And even
'86 either.
even the,
But I
and
mean,
even
they
where
had Ron Darling and Jesse Orosco. I mean, that was a good staff. Um,
and are you using 1928 baseballs or 1986 baseballs?
right, and how are the umpires calling it?
Yep. Yeah, I was a fan of the Mets because, of course, they were uh, the New York team that wasn't the Yankees. But I actually won a bet on the '86 Mets beating the '86 Red Sox in my college dorm. The World Series was starting, and one of the guys who lived in the room next to me, we just happened to be watching the first game, and yeah, I think he's was thinking he was going to take advantage of me and said, "Hey, you want to do a bet on who's going to win the series?" I said, "Yeah, sure." Anyway, I think we ended up drinking something minor. It was like a 6-pack of beer or something. But he had spent the summer like on Cape Cod, and so he took the Red Sox, and I kind of thought the Red Sox were going to win, and of course, even then, I was kind of hoping they were going to break the curse of the Bambino. But it was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll take the Mets. The Mets are a good team too. They got a shot at this, so I didn't worry too much about it. And of course, that series was so exciting and so dramatic. I remember when the Mets won the series. I just got up, walked out of my room, walked into his room, told him what kind of beer I wanted, turned around and walked out.
Bam! It's a dorm room mic drop right there.
Yeah, Chris Andrews, Gooden, Darling, Sid Fernandez, Baba Ojeda, I don't know, with Aguilera, Orozco, McDowell in the pen. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
Jesse Orozco. I loved watching him pitch. Because he was a lefty, of course, and he could just discombobulate a lot of right-handed hitters. And you could tell he just reveled in doing that too. He's like, okay, I'm going to change my arm angle. Deal with this. I'm going to completely change my windup.
so you're a Brewers fan, and
Yes.
of course, again, speaking of the Mets, we knocked you out last fall. Sorry about
Mm-hmm.
that.
That's okay. These things happen.
How are the Brewers doing this year?
They're doing better. They started off really slow. They couldn't hit their way out of a paper bag, but the last 20 games or so, they kind of got it turned around, and they swept a couple of series, including one against the Phillies, which I was mightily happy about. I was gonna torment our friend and Phillies fan Rich Baker, but I never actually got around to it.
As you'll recall, the first time you were on the show, you and Rich were on together.
Yes, yes, and yeah, they're always, he started at TSR a few years after I did. And he and I really became close when we moved out to Seattle to work at WotC, because totally inadvertently, he and his family and my girlfriend at the time, and we each ended up getting apartments in the same complex. A matter of fact, in buildings that were right next to each other. We hadn't planned this. We didn't know it until driving out to Seattle. Cindy and I were driving into the parking lot to enter our apartment for the first time. And as we're pulling into the parking lot, there's a woman getting some groceries or something out of the trunk of her car. And Cindy and I both looked at the same time and said, "Wait, that's Kim Baker, Rich's wife." And she looked and it was like, and Kim looked at us, and and her jaw dropped, and our jaws had dropped. So we got we became very close. They had two little girls. We ended up having a little girl, so the girls would play together. We'd go over to their house a lot of times in summer, and have cookouts and game nights and things like that. But we always had a friendly rivalry with our sports teams, because Rich is all Philadelphia all the time, and
yeah,
we did go see an NFL game, the Seahawks, when the Eagles came out to Seattle to play, and Rich and I kind of made a day of it. We drove up to Seattle kind of early and had breakfast in one of the little outdoor cafes in the neighborhood of the football stadium. Had breakfast and an Irish coffee or two, and then went to the game. And this was in the Seahawks' current stadium, and it wasn't the old
Kingdom.
Yes, it was not that. It's the new open air. But we had gotten our tickets relatively late, and we were in the upper deck.
Yes. I'm not hearing you anymore. Was that me? Oh, I'm offline. What the hell? I hate when this happens. All of a sudden. So this is still recording. So people who are watching this on replay will be able to know that all of a sudden I am offline. And I don't know why. Oh, no, Dale, come back. Can you still hear me, Chris Andrew? Because this is. Oh. This is so weird. I'm still online. Okay. My computer suddenly I couldn't hear Dale, and my computer was telling me that I was offline. You guys can hear me. That's good, unless you're typing. Okay, but we lost Dale. I don't know what. I mean, the fact that my computer is telling me that I was offline tells me that we probably lost Dale because I had a computer issue. Here he is. He's coming back. Hello, Dale. Hello, Dale.
Hello, I think I'm back. I just got disconnected against
Yeah,
my will.
I was just talking to the chat about that because I looked up and my computer was telling me that I had been disconnected. So if I lost connectivity, that would have kicked you out. But
Mhm.
they, without me doing anything, the the chat could still hear me. I don't know what happened. Once again, technology uh, wins. But we got it back together. Look at us, we're here again.
Yes. I was going to say, somebody doesn't want me to tell that story, but very briefly, I will try to finish it. Rich and I were going to our seats in the upper deck of the Seattle football stadium. And
Yeah.
as I had previously mentioned, Rich and I had a friendly rivalry. And that extended, beyond sports to, you know, uh, most things, it's the guy thing. You have a friendly competition with the guys around you, and so our seats were in the upper deck, and they were very high up in the upper deck. Rich and I start climbing these stairs, and we're on the same stair step, you know,
Yeah.
it's a wide, it's a big stadium, so we could be side by side, two guys, even two big guys, you know, and then we're still going up, and
Just imagining where this story is going.
now I'm a step I find myself I'm a step behind Rich. He's one step ahead of me, one stair step ahead of me. And we're still climbing and we're still climbing and we're still climbing. And now I see he's two steps ahead of me. He's
Uh-oh.
two stair steps ahead of me. And of course, the male ego kicks into me and is like, you are not going to fall any more farther behind him. He's going to give you crap the rest of the day. So boom. So I'm making sure, I'm not falling any farther behind him because he would go out and hike and stuff. And,
Right.
yeah. And he had been in the military. He was in better shape than I was, So it's like, oh, I can't stop. Can't get any farther behind. Can't let him get any farther ahead. Can't let him. And we finally get to our seats, and we're both huffing and puffing, and we sit down. Take a load off, and he turns to me and he says, "Hey Dale, I'll buy the food if you go get it." And I called him some names and explained to him what I had just explained to you.
Yeah.
That I couldn't let and he started laughing and he said, "Yeah, no." And the whole time he said to me, I knew you were right behind me, and I was like, so I said, I have to go faster. I have to go faster. I have to go faster.
Oh man.
So we were both punishing ourselves.
You guys. You're such guys.
Being guys. Yeah. So that was
Tell you,
amusing
I've never
to
been
us.
to the new stadium, but I remember going to a couple of Mariners games at the Kingdom while it was still around. And
Mhm.
in fact, uh, we got tickets at the last minute. A bunch of us. I don't remember whether you were part of this group. I know Rich was. Rich
I was not part of that group.
it was the last game that Randy Johnson pitched as a Mariner. And it was the
Right.
game where he won his 50th game or his 20th. He got his 20th win, which is a different story that I will never forgive Randy Johnson for. Um,
Did he do it
but
against the Mets or something?
no, no. In fact, I'll tell that story in a minute.
Okay.
But the walk up to the seats was so steep. It was crazy, and I was not going down those stairs for anything. There was just no way. If I had to, thankfully I didn't have to pee that game, or if I did, I convinced myself I didn't have to, because if I'd
Yeah.
gone down there, I wasn't going back up.
I went. Well, no, I went to one Mariners game in the Kingdom with some of the WotC people, and it wasn't that one because I remember that one, but and I remember we were in the lower deck, but we were so far back on the lower deck that the upper deck obscured about half the outfield.
Yeah, no,
And
we were actually in the very last row in the Kingdom.
I remember hearing that story. Yeah, no, I was not at that game. I wanted to, but something happened and I couldn't go along. But I went to one game, at least one game subsequent to that, the summer of '98. I think it was '98. Yeah, when my parents came out to visit,
Hmm.
and uh, one day I took my dad to a Mariners game. They won, and we got to see Ken Griffey hit a home run. So,
Nice.
so that worked out well. And then they detonated that giant concrete pimple
Yeah,
and got what was it, the baseball stadium was called Safeco Field. It's probably changed its name by now, and then built their.
it's T-Mobile Park now.
There we go. And then built a football stadium next to it. I remember they all the Seattle TV stations showed the implosion of the Kingdom live on TV, and I remember videotaping it and then sending the videotape here to Wisconsin so my dad could watch the implosion because, of course, hey, Dad, here's watch this building imploded that you and I were inside at one point.
That's nice.
Oh, and Chris Andrew also says we won't forgive Randy Johnson for obliterating that bird in spring training.
Oh man. Yeah, okay, so the Randy Johnson story. He had 19 wins and he was not starting. This was I think it was the last game of the season. And it wasn't his start. Um, but the Mariners got I don't remember who was, I think no, I don't remember who was pitching for the Mariners, but he was pitching a great game. And the Mariners had staked him to like a 6-run lead. And so they took him out in the 5th inning and put Johnson in. And he pitched an inning or two because he was coming on short rest. He just won his 19th game in his previous turn in the rotation. I see. I'm looking up now and I can see that what I'm drawing is no longer synced up. It's just still. I've been drawing a lot since then. All right. So I'm going to put that down. I'm going to switch this over. Yeah, so it's just us. And you're not Bart Carroll.
I don't believe so. And I don't think Bart would want me to be either.
No. Let's see. Yeah, so they put him in for an inning or two, and the other team never got never managed to catch up. So the starter couldn't get the win because he didn't go 5 innings. So
Right.
Johnson that was his 20th win, and that was just so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I hated it, and he was all over the news, and he got was so happy, everyone was celebrating, but we knew his contract was up, and he just left. Like, so he got his 20th win, he got a huge amount of money, and blew out of town. And I just thought, and he never had another 20-win season, right? If he had another 20-win season, that goes just in as an asterisk. But that was his 20-win season that everyone always talks about him doing, and I do not forgive him for that. He never seemed like a nice person to begin with. So,
yeah, that's not a good way to vulture a win there.
I mean, certainly the manager, the team had to do it, right? It's not like something he could have done on his own. But yeah, God damn it. Oh, piss me off. All right, so I'm gonna stop mirroring. Let's see what happens if I do this. I think we're gonna wrap up pretty soon. We've been going for 2 hours. I'm looking up and realizing suddenly that we've been doing this for 2 hours. Thank you for taking some time out of your evening to come and hang out. Let's spend a little more time talking about gaming, and then
Yes.
we'll wrap up.
Okay.
All right, but first, let me see what I can do here. If I come back to this view. All right.
You didn't lose a bunch of work, did you? I
No, I
hope.
didn't lose any work. It's the work
Oh,
is there. It just didn't transfer to
no, I
this
didn't. Okay, I see.
to this to so that it could be seen what I was doing. Like I was working down here before looking at what it was showing before. You see, there are 3 shades on that
Mm-hmm.
leg. There were only
Yep.
2 shades, so there's a bunch here that I put in since then that didn't show up. Oh well.
Well, as long
Um,
as the work is there.
yeah. So, Dale,
Stan.
what are you working on these days? What are you doing uh, in the broader gaming industry?
Um, After I stopped freelancing full time in, let's see, would have been about 2006, I decided, well, okay, if things come along that sound interesting to me and it's working with people I know and like, yeah, I'll probably do some things. But I had just relocated, had just started a new job, and and Cindy and I had a 5-year-old little girl.
Hmm.
So I largely decided, well, I'm just going to go back to being a gamer, and have largely stuck to that. I've done some work here and there. Um, I wrote a few essays for some James Lauder uh, edited game anthologies, like the 100 Best Hobby Games and the 100 Best Family Games,
Mm-hmm.
both of which were published by Green Ronin and are still available in PDF from Green Ronin's website if you're interested. Uh, a
You're a good
game.
salesman, buddy.
Thank you. Uh, I did some freelancing here and there, like came up in the chat earlier. I edited the Legend of the Twin source book for Margaret Weiss's company when they had license to publish the Dragonlance supplements for D&D. I did do some editing relatively recently for John Wick and Chaosium's second edition of the 7th Sea role playing game, which I have always loved.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to edit 3 or 4 books of that after Chaosium bought the game from John, and John continued to work on the line and was kind enough to bring me in an editor for some of that. There's 1 or 2 other things I'm not sure I can actually talk about, but the things I can talk about, and it has been most consistent the last few years. Uh, our friend and former colleague Lester Smith, game designer extraordinaire, several years ago retired to his stately expanse in the state of Nebraska. He's living near he and his wife and one of their daughters are living near their eldest daughter and her whole family. So they got a whole big extended family thing going on out there, which is wonderful for them. And Lester, being the game designer that he is, since he is retired, has published 4 different role-playing
Right.
game systems. And he's generously allowed me to kibitz and give him feedback. And edit 3 of those 4 systems, which I am very proud to have my name on. They are the D6 by D6 game, now in its second edition.
Mm-hmm.
There's a D13
Mm-hmm.
horror RPG, which he considers his bucket list masterpiece. This is the horror role playing game he's always wanted to design. He got an opportunity to do that. He has the Bookmark No HP RPG, which is literally a full role playing game on both sides of a bookmark you would put in a typical book. And the most recent one is the D-Force role playing game, where D4s rule and D20s drool. And those are all available from LesterSmith.com or DriveThruRPG.com.
Reaching over
Check
here.
those out. They're all rules light, very story forward. Just get to, yes, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, there's the Bookmark RPG, and there are expansions. There's a player's hand bookmark. There's a dungeon. There's a game host's bookmark. There are also multiple genre bookmarks. There's a Dracula's Get, which is a gothic horror. There's a cyberpunk one. There's Bookmark the Stars, which is space opera. There's a Lovecraftian one. And a bunch more I can't remember right now. Yes. Oh, there's the fantasy one, Sword and Spell bookmark. And
Paranormal world bookmark.
Word bookmark.
Yes.
Word
bookmark.
bookmark.
No HP supers, Sword and Spell books. Yes. Yeah. They're terrific.
Which are great. The players get to contribute to the story, and they're really great for one shots or online gaming. Because you don't spend all that time trying to look up the rules and so on and so forth, because they're all right in front of you on a bookmark. Or he also does versions of them as standard playing card size. So most of the gaming work that I do these days is with Lester on one of his many, many RPG systems. He's one of my dearest friends, and I get to kibitz with him and talk a lot about games. So that's good for me.
Can't go wrong with that.
Exactly. Thank you, Chris. I had a great time being here. I hope I allowed Stan time to get some work done, even if we drifted pretty far afield from D&D gaming and stuff. I had a great time.
I think what I look at it like, particularly in this this kind of episode, it's about. I was just going to hang out and talk about whatever came off the top of my head. So everything is fair game. And if you and I are entertained, then that's the win. Hopefully, because we're entertained, other people will be. Now, I mean, yeah, maybe we shouldn't spend the whole time talking about baseball, but spending the time we did, fair game. Baseball's a game.
Yeah, there you go.
Baseball's a game.
We even talked about a game for a while.
Yes. Oh, it's so meta.
There's a whole meta level in there. Thank you.
So you go to Gary Con. I mean, since you live in the area, or at least to the reunion. Do you also go to Gamehole Con?
I have not yet attended that, but I know I should.
Yeah, I mean, you should, in that a lot of people were there, and you'd have a good time.
Yes, that is the reasoning.
Are you
But
gaming much these days?
well, on Thursday evenings, I game online with our friend Lester, our friend Steve Smith, and a group of other people that, some people come and go. It's a very loosely knit group. So if a couple of people can't make it that night, well, that's okay. We can play something else where we've got a couple of, Lester runs a bookmark something, or Steve Sullivan, another former TSR employee, uh, he ran us through a little Dark Shadows kind of thing that he was putting together, I think, for GaryCon. He ran it at GaryCon.
Hmm.
And I was supposed to recently start start a face-to-face role-playing group with a good friend of mine, several friends of mine here in Kenosha, but my schedule didn't mesh with anybody else's. And rather than detonate the whole group, say, no, you guys go ahead. I can't make that day. So now I'm desperately trying to find a replacement, because I was really looking forward to getting back to this face-to-face stuff, getting good meaty role playing, and that opportunity didn't work out. So I'll just have to create one of my own here. Because as I have pointed out to a couple other people recently, I recently counted how many RPG systems I own, and, and a couple of ground rules. I only, for example, count D&D as one. I got
Right.
all different. I got stuff from first edition, basic D&D, up to through fifth edition. But that's one system. I only count that as one system. And like Uber systems, like GURPS, I have a dozen, if not more, different GURPS books, but I don't. But I
Right.
just count GURPS as one system. Same with the fate system. You have a bunch of different settings and worlds and things.
Right.
Do you care to venture a guess? I don't know if I know the exact number right now, but we'll ballpark it. Do you have a guess?
My guess is I'm either gonna go too low or I'm gonna go way too high. If I go way too high, then it doesn't make you seem serious. Like I was say, I could say I'm thinking what I've got, and I think that I could easily say 45 to 50 game systems. And a lot of them are very small. I collect a lot of the like the ones that Lester does. So that might even be short. But I don't know if that so yeah. Okay. Surreptitious says 42. I'll just go with around 50. How is that? We lost Dale again? Or did I just embarrass him out of the Oh, I see. God damn it. All right. Well, what do we do? If I stop the mirroring, I come back here. Dale, you still there? Yeah, it froze for a second. I think that's what kicked Dale out. I think I may have found the problem. We'll see. We'll see. We'll give him a couple of minutes, and then I'll, I'll I'll wrap up. Oh, Dale, I'm sorry. It's me. It's me. It's not you. Um, yeah, but this has been fun. This has been. Oh, here we go. He's back. Good. Error started the interview session. Come on. That's weird. Well, well. Diagnosing the problem is hard. Yes, and diagnosing the problem live on the internet. Do it again, Dale. Dial in again, Dale. You there? You there?
Hello?
Yes.
I could still see and hear you, but you couldn't see and hear me, I guess.
Yeah, well, I found out what the problem is to with a still a lot of unknown. But when my screen freezes up like that, uh, when what my iPad is showing freezes up, that's what initiated the kicking you out.
Oh, okay.
So, um, yeah,
Well, it's nice to be back. Like I said, even though I could continue to see and hear you, I was replying and I was frozen out. But now I'm back.
all right. Well, let's then let me do this, and I will put away the drawing. But I'll say this is how far I got, given where we started the evening. This is where I finished the evening, which is certainly farther along than the drawing had been. We've got. I think that although I'm probably going to go for some special effects on the glowing thing above Mordenkainen's hand, maybe some light effects when I'm done. I think that Mordenkainen and the Kieran are done, and it's time to start working on the Astral Dreadnought.
Sounds good, Stan. I would love to see that Astral Dreadnought when it's done.
I will make sure to show you. And now
Yeah,
I'll.
I'm signed up. I'm signed up for your stuff. I get your
Oh, okay.
newsletters.
All right. So I'll now get that out of there, and I will disconnect the iPad, so it won't now. Now that won't be a problem for as we wrap this up. Um, you so I mean it's come up a little bit. You and Jim Louder. You and Jim Louder know each other very well. You guys do anything together besides write little essays?
Yeah, we get together for lunches and stuff when we both have time. We're part of a small gang in and around Milwaukee. We get together for game days, not nearly often enough, according to me, but you know, that's just me. There's usually one every couple of months or so, and we meet at somebody's house and order pizza or cold cuts or grill out and play board games and eat and drink beer and trash talk each other while we play board games,
You guys.
which which usually amounts to us trying to stop Louder from winning all the games. Because it's not a game day if he doesn't win at least half.
Right.
So,
Right. Well.
so sometimes it's just like, you know what, Jim? I'm sorry to this. This is our third game. You've won the first two. I'm dedicating myself to you not winning this game.
So
He's
Jeff.
like, why would you do that? Well, because you're you and you're going to win all the games if somebody doesn't take you down.
So Jeff and Kate Grubb host game days on major holidays.
Oh, yes, yes.
And so I mean this has been a tradition going back to Lake Geneva,
Mm-hmm.
but they still do. And Kate, who I love dearly,
Yes.
holds a grudge like no one I have ever met.
Kate, no.
Just saying. I'm just saying.
A ray of sunshine and sweetness that she is.
She is that too. Also, she holds a hell of
Exactly.
About God, this has to have been 10 years ago now, maybe more. One of the games we play almost every time is Ticket to Ride.
Wonderful game.
Everyone loves Ticket
Yes.
to Ride. And Kate, very competitive, and she's pretty good at Ticket to Ride too. I'll give her that.
Mm-hmm.
She wins a fair amount. And we're playing this one game, and she and I are the two leaders coming as we go down towards the end of the game. And we get to someone, it might have even been Kate, got down to the end mechanic triggering.
the one train left or something. Yeah.
And Steve Miller was also playing in this game, and it's clear. Well, I guess probably it wasn't. It hadn't been triggered yet, because it's clear that she's got a whole network going, and she is trying to connect in the Pacific Northwest on that board game. There's only only two tracks between Seattle and Portland and Seattle and Vancouver, and it's clear she's got everything going up to Portland, and then she's got stuff coming out of Seattle, and if she can connect them, she will clearly have the longest route, and she'll connect her West Coast and East Coast. She's been working towards this whole time. Meanwhile, I'm trying to I've got a lot going on. I've got a pretty long thing. I don't need that. But if she gets it, I'm going to lose. And there were 2 spots open. Both spots between Portland and Seattle are open. And Steve Miller has a turn, then I have a turn, then Kate has a turn. And it's Steve's turn. And I said to him, Steve, this is what's going on. This is what Kate's trying to do. And if she gets that connection between Seattle and Portland, she's going to win the game. You're in a position, there's nothing for you to gain from grabbing one of those 2 spots between Seattle and Portland. But if you do, I'm going to grab the other, and it's going to block Kate. And Kate just starts like, "What are you doing? Shut up, Stan! What are you trying to get him? There's nothing for him. He's got no cars. He's got no trains out there. Why would he want to play a train out there?" I said, "I understand, Steve. She's right. There is nothing. It's just one car, 1 point. That's all it is for you. But if you don't do it, then I can't stop her, and she's going to win the game." And
I can hear her saying those words.
And she's like, "Steve, you should not even listen to this. Just play. You can play that car anywhere." Probably wasn't the last thing, because this was the only move he had, is to play one car somewhere, or one or 2 cars somewhere. And he's looking at it and thinking, I could play down there, like down the Houston connection, but or I could play here. And she's like, "What?" It's like, "Look, Steve, I'm not offering you anything. And that's it. It gives you nothing. But if you play there and then I follow up, we will disrupt Kate's plans." And he says, "I think I'm going to do that." And Kate, it's not. She doesn't really lose her mind, but she goes, "What? Why would you do that?" It's like, I could. It's 1 point. It's a say. I get 1 point whether I play here or there. I'm gonna play here. You still have 1 track to go through. It's like, "But Stan's gonna take that track." It's like, I'm just making my play," says Steve, and so he does, and so I do, and we block her, and she can't make the connection, and that gives her a -20 for a long connection that didn't go through, and she doesn't get the longest train. And she forgave Steve for some reason. She forgave.
Did you?
She still kind of rags him about it a little bit, but with me, she wants revenge on me, and she's had it. She beat me like a red-headed conductor on the next time we played. But every time we sit down to play, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you." Wow, Kate, you got me already. Let it go.
Did you win that game?
Oh, I won the game. Yeah, I won that game.
Good. That's at least in my mind, validates that course of action, because I can, so that's perfectly fine. Couple of very brief TSR lunchtime board game stories.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name either of these people, but
I might.
There was one person who would sometimes, not always, but would sometimes come and have lunch in the TSR Games library before you started at the company.
Okay.
we would, hey, somebody brought in a new game. You want to play? Sure. Great person, friendly, play. But if that person didn't win that game that first time, that person would never play that game again.
I, I know a couple of people who that describes aptly.
And this person wasn't mean about it,
Right?
wasn't upset or anything, but when asked to play that game on subsequent occasions, would politely decline.
Yeah.
There was another person who would play, who was always in the games library, was always having lunch with us. It was a great person to play games with, great person to know. And you'll know who I'm talking about, I think, as soon as I say this.
I think I know who you're talking about in the last one.
If you transgressed against this person within the game, and it might be a what others might consider a very minor transgression or a major transgression, a la your Ticket to Ride story.
Yeah.
This person would decide, you have transgressed against me. I cannot allow that to stand. And I do not care how I perform in the rest of this game, but I will do all in my power to see that you do not win.
Yeah.
And so this person would just kind of like, grab you around the legs and just drag you down. And sometimes, okay, yes, I transgressed against you in this big way. And yes, I did a bad thing, within the realm of, acceptable behavior within this game. But yes, I transgressed against you, and okay, you're going to come after me. That's fine. But sometimes it would be, we would get others who had played the game would get together after the game and go, what did I do to deserve that? You didn't do anything. Okay.
You transgressed.
You did something. I don't know.
Oh man. Yeah. No, I'm gonna stop. Or I've got 2 or 3 stories about. Well, one of them is XTSR, but other stories. I have a few people like that in my life. Oh boy. Well, Dale, we're now getting close to 2.5 hours. Thank you very much, my friend, for taking the evening and hanging out with me.
I enjoyed every second of it, hanging with you and the people in chat. So thank you for letting me do this.
You are welcome back anytime. Those of you who are still watching here at 2.5 hours, I'm going to continue to try to work on this. Maybe by next week I will have finished it. I'll be back again next week working on something in this role. As I hinted at, I am starting to put together lists and send out emails about getting new guests. Sometime in July, we will start back up with regular interviews. Or, I mean, if someone's ready, I may bump one in and kind of bounce back and forth between these formats for a little bit. Can we please invite Dale to come back soon? Dale, you're invited to come back soon.
Thank you. I appreciate the
invitation.
Come
back next week. You're welcome to do that too, but I don't want to lay too much on you. So send me an email, or we'll chat offline, and whether it's next week or sometime soon, I for sure will have you back on for more conversations.
I look forward to it.
All right, I'm now going to take you out of the. I'm going to mute you, Dale, and come back over to here. And it's just me on the line now. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and hanging out with me while I worked on the Mordenkainen's Multiverse, Monsters of the Multiverse. piece. It's now, I think it's about the halfway. Well, it's crested the halfway point for the overall. The coloring's about halfway done. I will post it. If you want to be the first people to see it when it's done, then the free 50 years in the dungeon.substack.com newsletter is the place to go. Sign up, like I say, completely free, and you'll get the first view of things that are finished. You'll get sketches when they're done and other little bits. You'll get news about who's coming on the show and all of that. So please go sign up there. While you're here, if you're this far into it, hey, I've definitely deserved a thumbs up or a heart or a like or whatever your platform gives you. I mean, if you've made it this far, you found it entertaining. So please, it helps the show. It helps to get the show presented to new people so that they can join us for more shows like this. Also, once this is done, if you've watched it and you want to say something out, baseball or anything that we were chatting about, please leave a comment after. I know if you're in the chat room, you've already left comments. Thank you very much. But the algorithm, the dreaded algorithm, really likes comments that are put on during the during replays. So do that, please, and thank you. I will be back tomorrow night for an episode of Random Encounters, my improv cartooning show, and hopefully we will not have the screen freezing that we had this time. Hey, I see the Dale. Thank you again. You're in the chat. And until then, everyone, please take care of yourselves, and